Hey guys, this is TJ, and you're listening to the Bamsters podcast. Remember, with great podcasts comes great entertainment. Boom, 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 boom.
Yes, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, dogs and cats, myself and Drac are here to talk to you about some very, very specific things that have been going on in the past weeks, days, hours, seconds. Drac, please, sir, introduce yourself.
Hey. Episode 96. I'm always amazed when we do the counter and it gets up, as high as it has. But yeah, this is our December comic shop talk segment. But before that, you're going to have to listen to Bamm and I ramble on about some newsy bits.
Yeah, news type stuff and thing, guys, that we believe that are important to you. As you guys know, we talk news in the past tense, so you guys are up to date as of the Monday, Tuesday, whichever day we decide to release this. So you guys are relatively up to date with last week's stuff, just in case you missed it. Yes, you might have missed a few things. These things are quite important.
Well, first up, we have the Video Game Awards that are coming out on December 7th, and they're actually going to have different ways for you to live stream it, so you don't necessarily have to be there or worry about having maybe some kind of other type of access to get into it. You should be able to, with internet access, just be able to watch it. So we'll make sure we put a link in the description, but it's going to be all about 2017 and the video games that have come out, and what industry folks think about those video games.
Please note, boys and girls, this is actually propaganda by Drac, because most of the games mentioned are Nintendo games. So if you guys are Nintendo phobic like me, then run away! Run away!
There's going to be plenty of games in there that aren't Nintendo games. And hey, since you did bring up the Switch, if it was going to win any kind of award, do you know that during the Black Friday sales here in the US, it was the best-selling product online? Not just video game console, not just electronic item, but best-selling product.
That's because it's new and shiny, and people like new shiny things. If they'd launched the PlayStation 5, I can guarantee you, boy man, that the PlayStation 5 would have outsold the Nintendo Switch in a heartbeat.
But they released it back in, March? So, it's been out for almost a year already.
Still a new shiny, mate. Still a new shiny. Everyone's getting a new shiny for Christmas.
And I'm actually surprised you didn't say, oh, well, it was on sale, because it actually wasn't. There were no discounts or anything like that. It's the same price it's been since it was released.
That's because Nintendo wants your money, and they're going to sell you nostalgia. Yes.
There is some truth to that, sure. But, I've had quite a bit of fun playing the Mario Kart that's on there. I need to spend more time playing Zelda, because I still haven't finished that game. And Mario Odyssey just released. I haven't even picked it up yet because I don't know when I'm going to be able to play it yet.
Fair enough. So guys, the names of the games that are on the nominees are The Legend of Zelda, Breath of the Wild, i.e. Skyrim, Super Mario Odyssey, i.e. Super Mario Bros., PUBG, yes, good game, Persona 5, Horizon Dawn Zero, blah blah blah, Destiny 2, all that stuff. So yes, quite a varied amount of games, but a lot of them are Nintendo. Yes, a lot of them are.
Yeah, but you're just talking about the Game of the Year category. There's plenty of other categories to take a look at, too.
True. Moving swiftly on, Drac. Haven't you got more Nintendo-related articles to discuss, sir?
Well, if you really want to sit and talk Nintendo, I'm sure we could fill this block up with various Nintendo things. But no, one of the other things I kind of wanted to point out, that we've talked a little bit about these kinds of things on the show before, and I really like that we've got another company kind of taking a stand with this. But WotC, Wizards of the Coast, the company that publishes Magic, now has owned TSR for quite a while, publishes Dungeons and Dragons. They're basically kind of coming out because of some things that have happened recently in the community, and taking a stance against online bullying and whatnot, and against the content creators who are creating content that either reinforce or encourage the people who watch their content to engage in that kind of behavior.
So you're saying someone called someone a bad name and they got pissed and now nobody can have fun?
No, it's not as simple as that. There's actually I think what started all this, or at least what brought it to the forefront, is that there was a professional cosplayer that kind of backed out of some stuff because of the fact that they were being harassed, and it kind of led back to this one guy. I'm not going to get into any names. You want to find out who, you want to really dig into that, you can do that research online. But basically, the guy had made a video. More or less, my understanding was that both what he said, it wasn't just mean, but basically calling this person out, had a lot of nasty things to say. Also then went and encouraged his followers to do things, which they then started like this online harassment campaign, which then led to this person like basically not being able to handle that kind of negative energy thrown at them. I do think that if you're going to be any kind of online personality, at some point you're going to run into a large group of negative people, and you've got to find a way to deal with that. But the types of things that we see sometimes in and around the gaming community, video games and comic books and stuff, to some extent, the kind of negative attention that comes from that, sometimes it goes above and beyond what should be acceptable. And even more so, it's people who a lot of times feel empowered. The keyboard warriors, they're sitting behind a monitor, and these are things they probably would never say to anyone else in real life. And I think that's probably a really good way to measure something anytime you're going to post something online. If you're afraid to say it to somebody's face, you shouldn't be saying it online either.
That's the best thing about anonymity. So what you just told me is someone said something, someone said something else, and one guy who had a bunch of followers on YouTube's, Twitter's, Discord, whatever have you, dogpiled the other guy because favoritist person since ever. That's been happening on the internet for, let's see, ever since the internet became a thing, eh? So why all of a sudden now? I'm
not saying that this is a new thing, not by any means. I know this has been going on, since the internet age started. But what I am saying is that with regards to this specific article, it's nice to see companies coming out, calling out this behavior, and trying to encourage people to kind of move away from, that type of behavior.
You can take it too far, though, you see. That's my issue. A name calling on the internet has been going around since day dot, right? But you can take it too far and then become fanatical about it, where you have to play a certain way, or that's it, done. Goodbye, God bless. So, yes, it's a good thing, but also it can be a bad thing. They need to be able to temper and differentiate between, he's just a shit stirrer, or, okay, this guy's actually gone ahead and done this deliberately. So, they've got to draw the line somewhere.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it requires a certain level of, shall we say, common sense to be applied as well.
Common sense, sir, is not so common. As it so happens, common sense has decided to leave and vacate the building in a certain game developer's sense, and many about it as well. As you guys know, EA has a loot box issue. A loot box crack issue. Just recently they are about to launch a game called UFC 3, and apparently UFC 3's got even more loot boxy shenanigans than Battlefront 2. Now, as you guys know, Battlefront 2 had, I want to call it online gaming. I agree with that adage from thing. You basically pay money for basically a penny slot, essentially. So you put your hard-earned dollars in, you press a button, and then it basically, you get 3 cherries and get an upgrade to your character, which other players who don't want to spend money in the game don't get. But in the sports genre, i.e. FIFA, they've been putting up with it for ages, and now UFC that are doing the same damn thing. Your punch can become more significant compared to another person's punch who's got the same character, and this shouldn't necessarily be the case. So I think 𝘎𝙁𝙬𝙬𝙨 said the point of they've just gone ahead and, instead of fixing the issue, they've just gone ahead and done it more. I believe these games have been developed to the point where they can't go back, and they were going to launch UFC 3 in the beginning of the year, and it's too late in the development to change or whatever have you. So that's why it was going to happen the way it was going to happen. Yeah, big shit. Loot boxes suck. I think a good old Jimbo has managed to publicize it so much that everyone now has jumped on that bandwagon. GameSpot, Comical Loot, all them places are now jumping on the loot box controversy and are weeding out anything that resembles a loot box. Anything that resembles a loot box, they're calling out now. Alright, point's been made, people. Developers, or should I say, publishers are making developers change things, and I believe Disney are climbing into some bits and pieces now, so I think the point's been made. But then, they won't do it ever again until the next time. So, people like Jimbo have helped us as much as they hinder us. So, yes. Do you know what's going on with the loot boxes, Drac? Because I think it's just one massive cluster. I mean, I've been playing a lot of free-to-play games, right? And a lot of games I've been playing tend to deal with cosmetic upgrades. And there is a loot box element in Paragon, which I've been playing quite a lot, but it doesn't give you any in-game advantage, power-ups, whatever have you. Yes, it gives you coins, and it gives you epic keys to unlock more cards and whatever have you, but
This is good, and if you like bacon, then come listen to us at Rated R.
All right, and we are back, so hopefully you stuck with us through the news. Now we've muted Bamm's mic so he can't interrupt and give his horrible opinions on his lack of interest in Star Wars and things like that. But,
awful. Just the worst.
But hey, it's Drac and TJ here with Comic Shop Talk.
What's up, guys? How are you?
This will be our December issue of this show. And coming up, we're going to... Something I found when I was like combing through the interwebs that I thought was kind of cool. I guess Michael Keaton is getting involved with a movie take on a Boom comic called Imagine Agents. Now, I hadn't actually heard of Imagine Agents before, but then as I start reading this, actually sounds like a kind of a neat concept. From what I understand, it's like a detective that has a bunch of imaginary friends. And
yeah, he's investigating. He's investigating crimes related to and committed by imaginary friends. So the idea of that is pretty neat, and it's kind of cool to see another comic do the take on the detective story, but turning it on its ear, kind of like what John Layman and Rob Guillory did on Chew. So this is pretty neat, and I think that it's cool to see more film and television springing from comics that's not just necessarily the big two or not just necessarily superhero genre. So I think this will be a lot of fun, and Michael Keaton's solid, man.
Yeah, that was a perfect pick for doing this. That's awesome. Yeah, no, and I agree though, because there's so much material out there, and you know, even when I keep hearing about some of these things like Imagine Agents that I hadn't heard of before but have existed out there, it's really cool because they're pulling from like all different corners.
Stuff like this, and then Happy on Sci-Fi Channel is Mark Miller, and you know, if you like Kick-Ass, if you like Kingsman, all that stuff, that's all Mark Miller. And so just another thing that's different. It's from a different corner of comics, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So I think something like this really kind of adds to the landscape.
Yeah, so definitely, you know, if you're into reading comics, if you want to try and check out something that's not necessarily superhero, it's a little out there, different than the norm, check out Imagine Agents by Boom, and keep an eye out in the future for this project with Michael Keaton. That sounds pretty cool. But
yeah, you
mentioned the big two, so I guess we'll start with Justice League, since that was recently out. Have you seen it yet?
Yes, and so
wait, let's just focus on that one part right there.
Well, I do have to say this. Anybody who's listened to us knows that I am critical towards what DC has done, because a lot of what they've done hasn't really stewarded their characters or the years of storytelling and world building. But Justice League was a pleasant surprise in a lot of ways. It doesn't mean it's a perfect movie by any stretch. It doesn't mean that there aren't a lot of flaws. And once again, Momoa Man, I'm looking at you. I'm not sold on Jason Momoa playing Jason Momoa in the water. It just, none of it felt like Aquaman to me. Even, you know, and spoiler alert, you know, even the scene in Atlantis with Mira and all that, Mira felt like Mira. That was really cool. She did cool underwater things with her magic and her underwater powers and all of that. That was great. Not once in the movie does Aquaman remotely do anything involving the sea life or the fish, the sea creatures, aquatic birds, anything. But, you know, we get that sweet shot of him downing a bottle of whiskey. So, I mean, well, yeah, Momoa Man.
The only thing you get of him doing anything really Aquaman is when he swims off really fast, and when he tries to hold back the water in the other scene.
Yeah, but that's not even really one of his powers. That's Tempest.
Well, and the funny thing is, too, though, the only thing you get with regards to sea life is that crack that Bruce Wayne makes.
Yeah.
When you, like, talk to fish or something.
and that would have been better saved for the Flash.
Yeah.
So, you know, like I said, there are flaws. Flash is another kind of big flaw for me. Another character who they didn't know what they wanted it to be. As usual, they call the guy Barry Allen, but they write him like Wally West. Well, so
and did they address your concern about the fingerless gloves? Because
no,
but he's not actually a CSI yet.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You still have a secret identity.
Yeah, and I agree. I don't think the fingerless gloves, that didn't ever make sense to me, but I know that was a big deal.
Oh, it's the worst.
You give me a hard time for, like, me getting hung up on minute details and stuff, but that's one of the ones that really...
But that's not even a minute detail. That's common sense.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
You wear a mask, you might as well cover everything else up.
Yep.
But, you know, on the good side of things, because, you know, I could talk about the stuff that needs to be improved all day, but on the good side of things, Superman was Superman. And it was so nice to see Superman be Superman. You know, the primary colors, the smile, the sense of humor, the kindness.
I will say there were probably only 2 things I think that really bothered me about Superman in this one, and they were minute.
We're not going to talk about the CGI, right? Because
that's the first one, because it's the first scene you see, and it's supposedly filmed from like a cell phone.
Yeah.
And I thought they really could have made it a little grainier and a little more distance, and it wouldn't have been as noticeable. I wasn't even looking for it, but it was just slammed me right in the face, and I couldn't help it. Yeah, that was kind of crazy, but that's minor.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing was, you can argue about the way he was brought back one way or the other, whether or not you like that. But
one of my flaws.
When he comes back, I didn't have any problem with him being a little confused and all that.
Sure.
If anything, I think it should have lasted longer. They should have brought him back earlier in the movie, and it should have lasted longer for him kind of clearing out the cobwebs and figuring out what's going on, and then making the decision of, well, do I get involved? Because I was getting involved before, in the context of the movies.
Mm-hmm.
But he was beginning to get involved before, and then there were all these hurdles and roadblocks, and, you know, the government trying to spy on him, and then, you know, everybody turning on Superman because other Kryptonians came to the world and started to destroy the world, even though he had nothing to do with that, and he worked to save the world. He was still shouldering a lot of the blame for that.
I think it's a good thing that they avoided that. We need to move away from a Superman who is kind of wishy-washy and doesn't know if he should or not, because that's so much a huge part of the flaws of both Man of Steel and Superman versus Batman. If you don't have a Superman who, and I've said it before on this segment, Superman the movie, Richard Donner, there's the scene with Clark and his dad says, "Son, you were put on this earth for a reason." And if we can't finally get to a Superman who knows that he's here for a purpose, then it's continues to fail to be Superman.
Well, and I understand that. I just, speaking in context of how they've been bringing the character to life on screen, I thought it would have made more sense to the character.
Forget it. It's time to avoid that.
Well, but I will say, his entrance...
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, so, you know, his entrance with Steppenwolf was awesome.
Well, yeah, because he makes a little joke, he's got a little sense of humor.
Yep.
There's a sense of self-assuredness, there's a sense of things are going to be okay, because you see that big red and yellow S, you see the smile on his face, the moment he talks about standing for truth and justice. Everything about that feels like Superman in the most unapologetic of ways. Everything about Man of Steel is apologizing for being Superman. Everything about Batman vs. Superman is internet memes of why Batman is better than Superman. And neither is better than the other. They are, you know, like they are in the comics. They're the world's finest for a reason. And you can like one more than the other, but neither is better than the other. And we finally got to that point. But one of the strengths, while we're still on Superman, one of the strengths of this film that I really thought they nailed, for years and years and years, all I've ever said was that Superman is the most human character in the DC universe. And, you know, whether it's the way he grew up, growing up in Smallville, being adopted, moving to a big city, falling in love, great coworkers, working the dream job, all these things that Bruce will never be because Bruce feels he can't be them. To finally see on screen Batman say, Clark is more human than I am, was the most validating thing ever. And I love that. I love that they finally addressed that Clark's life is more human than Bruce's, because it's the truth.
There were some really great scenes with how they approached that. And I was completely, one of the things I loved about that was when you get Batman talking, I think if I remember right, it was when he's talking to Wonder Woman, and he's saying that, you know, she's like, he could have killed you, and he's like, that's a trade I was willing to make. Because he knows, you know, his place
Superman is more important than Batman,
right? But
to the grand scheme.
Yeah, but however, on the flip side of that, in the end battle with Steppenwolf, him just taking all the parademons with him and having no real plan was frustrating, because the type of character that Batman is, you would expect him to have some kind of plan, at least, not that it would necessarily be successful, maybe he gets crap kicked out of him, but it wouldn't have been, I'm just going to lead the parademons away and they're going to kill me. Like, there would have been more to it than that.
See, I don't think so. I think for a guy who has been street level crime for so long, your first taste of an alien invasion is, oh shit, let me do what I can. I don't want to talk too much about spoilers if you haven't seen the movie yet, but the final scene in the movie, not between Superman and Batman, but between Clark and Bruce, I had literal goosebumps. And again, I've been super critical about the approach to the DC universe in these movies, and it's not because I dislike DC, it's because I absolutely love DC Comics. And the last maybe 8 to 10 years, I've been super critical about a lot of stuff that they've done. Comics, animation, film, all of it. But to see a moment where it's not just Superman and Batman, but it's Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne, and you read the comics, you know their relationship. It's the absolute best thing. Wonder Woman was great, but that's not a surprise. One of the standouts of this movie, and if you go back an episode or two, you will hear me criticize him in that trailer. Cyborg is awesome. And
Booyah!
I loved him. I lost my mind when he said booyah in the movie. All of it. It's tough when you grow up with the Wolfman Perez Teen Titans, and then you grow up with a lot of the other material with Cyborg, whether it's, you know, Phil Jimenez and Devin Grayson and Mark Buckingham and all those guys working on Titans, or the Jeff Johns, Mike McCone Titans, all that stuff. Vic is such a well-rounded, fleshed out, pardon the bad choice of words for him, tangible character that they've really rested on kind of lowest common denominator storytelling with Cyborg in the last couple of years. So to see him really become this character who is so much more than, again, bad choice of words, the sum of his parts.
You're just full of them today.
Oh man, I'm full of something. He was great, and it was so nice to see them move away from two things that people often do with Cyborg. One of them is his anger at the world, because it's such an easy trope to rest on with Cyborg. Marv Wolfman didn't go to that well all the time, but sometimes he went to it more often than he should have. The other thing was the whole, in the 80s and the 90s, a lot of Cyborg was, I'm a monster, I'm a freak, and all that. And there's that moment where Cyborg talks about, you know, being a monster, and his dad's like, son, you're not a monster. And Vic says, what made you think I was talking about me? So to flip that trope around, which is something that's so closely associated with Cyborg, was awesome. So it was very cool to see that.
And something I kind of wanted to say about that character that I get so tired of with so many characters, but I felt this time was actually done well and appropriately used. I get so sick and tired of this with characters who get superpowers, and then oh, poor me, I have superpowers, and I'm a freak, and that is so tiring.
Vic has every reason to be, though.
But exactly,
and they still,
because of the story that leads up to that and how that's portrayed, and him dealing with all that, it made sense. It felt real, and it really went well with this character. So.
Yeah, so no, I was really excited about Cyborg, more than I thought I was going to be. Batman, better than he was in Batman vs Superman.
Better. Could have still used a few tweaks and improvements, but still a lot better.
There are things I would have changed. There's a lot I would have changed, but I have to say it. Forgetting about the CGI, the first 5 minutes of Justice League, the Superman scene and then the Batman scene, could not be quintessentially those two characters more than I've ever seen, at least for Superman since Christopher Reeve. So, you know, seeing Superman act like Superman and be nice to a couple of kids, and not in a condescending way, in a genuine way, and to see Batman be this, you know, dark, shadowy creature of the night, but the scourge of the underworld at the same time, and to see him be a vigilante, to be a superhero, to be a detective, all that stuff, it was so, really, you know, it was enthralling to see that. And, you know, when I looked at that scene right there with Batman crouching on the ledge and then grappling, hooking around the water tower and all that, when you watch that, forget about that being a Justice League movie. If that were a Batman movie, at any moment I could have seen Robin coming in and kicking the criminal in the face and all that. It could have felt like a real Batman movie, a Batman and Robin movie, and they swung for the fences with that scene, and it was a grand slam.
Yeah, it was so much better. And that kind of leads to an interesting point. I've said it before. If you follow me on Twitter, you may have seen me talking about this, and you'll probably hear it from me again. with regards to Justice League, I know that some of the stuff I've seen out, I haven't looked within the last week or so, that it was underperforming, even things like Batman vs Superman. Realistically, I would tell people, if you enjoy these characters the way they should be, this is not by any means a perfect movie. It is not a great DC movie, or what DC movie could be, like Wonder Woman was, but it is a good DC movie, and it is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
And if we don't go and support a movie like this, my fear is that what ends up happening is it sends the wrong message to the studio execs, and they think, oh, well, Batman vs Superman did better, and it was all this dark, gritty, you know, serious Superman, you know, emo Superman, whatever. We need to go back to that. I kind of get afraid that they're going to get that message, as opposed to, you know, it's underperforming because of the fact that we put out 2 movies that were not so great, and now people aren't as willing to go out and spend as much money on it.
No, I just, you know, if this is stuff that you want to see, you'll pay 1,000,002 times to see the same Star Wars movies over and over again, even when they're new movies. I'm not saying, oh, go out and support this struggling independent film here, but if this is the DC universe that you want to see, that step in the right direction, where superheroes act like superheroes, and there is, you know, this sense of understanding of who they are, give it a shot. You know, it's really good stuff.
Yeah, well,
you know, and again, not without its flaws.
Yeah,
absolutely not without its flaws. If I never heard Aquaman talk again, I wouldn't be sad. You know, but yeah, the last couple scenes in the film are just brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant.
Well, and the after credit scenes were pretty cool too.
Oh, you know what? Let's touch on that real fast. I'm not going to tell you what the after credit scenes are if you haven't seen it. One of them is a great setup for the future of DC films. And you get a character introduction in there, which is awesome. You might know he already has been cast anyway if you pay attention to the news. And as a Titans fan,
dude, he looks
seeing
great.
That character live action is one of the greatest things I've ever seen.
Well, it's not that we haven't seen the character before, but not on the big screen.
No, I haven't. I refuse to acknowledge any other.
Here we go again.
Yep. No.
How many Robins are there?
3. No, it was awesome. Seeing that was boss. But the other end credit scene, which comes before this, is the single greatest fan wank scene maybe in any end credit scene in a superhero movie, and I include the Marvel films. I have never thought that this would be something I would ever see on screen. The way they did it was great. It was light. It was kind-hearted. It was funny.
Yep.
It just every era of comic book reader who has grown up reading DC books has gotten this moment in their era of comics. And it's always so cool when you see it. They always recreate the cover in a cool way for the next audience. And it's the best. And to see it finally happen, and in the context that they did, it's a slam dunk. It's so much fun. And again, you listen to anything I've said previously, I had no hopes and no expectations. And it's always nice to come away from something with a much more positive attitude towards it. Again, not without its flaws, lots of room for improvement, but the good this time outweighed the bad for me. I would totally own this on Blu-ray.
Well, and I'm gonna speed along through our next 2 topics a little bit. Both of them Batman related, but the next one I know you're super excited for.
No, not at all. Nah.
Since we mentioned Robin.
Yes.
The reveal of Brenton, is it Thwaites?
Brenton Thwaites as the Boy Wonder himself.
Yeah, and the look of the costume is awesome. I mean, they really nailed it with this.
I could not be happier than what I see here. I'm going to be the first one to say it, and I know nobody wants to hear it. Burt Ward aside, because it was a product of the time period, there's never been a good live-action Robin. I'll say it. I don't care. Nope.
Yeah, you can't see my facial expressions, but
no,
it's kind of
never
like,
been.
Yeah, I'm sitting on the fence.
Anybody who tries to convince you that random cop in Christopher Nolan movies is Robin, tell them to line up, and
well,
I'm happy to give them.
You can't
5 to the eyes.
You can't count that as Robin. You can't count it as Robin for several reasons.
Well, yeah, because 1, his name isn't Dick Grayson or Jason Todd or Tim Drake.
Right.
2, he's wearing a cop uniform. He's not wearing red, green, and yellow. 3,
Exactly.
He's not Robin.
And he's never been trained by Batman.
4, he's also not Robin. He's a cop. But with that said, I was super, super, super apprehensive about the Titans live action show, and it's tough, especially when Ryan Potter, who is the voice of Hero in Big Hero 6, was my choice for Tim Drake as Robin, is now playing Garfield Logan, aka Beast Boy, on this Titans show. So I was, a little bummed out that he wasn't going to play Tim, but seeing Brenton Thwaites as Dick Grayson on this show is great, and aesthetically they pulled heavily from Tim Drake, as often everybody does for outside comics media, because Tim Drake is the greatest. But it looks great. They used a variation of Tim's R. It's the black and yellow cape, which was introduced with Tim Drake. The bow staff on Robin is another thing that was introduced with Tim Drake. So seeing all of that stuff there, it really lends to a cool modern live action Robin. It's so obviously with the age that he is, the actor is in real life, it's pretty clear that they're going to transition him to Nightwing within a season or two, and that'll be really exciting. So yeah, I'm totally and completely all in. I can't wait to see where that goes.
And if they're getting the casting, or at least the costuming right here, that makes me excited to see what the other characters are going to look like.
Yeah. Side note, a friend of mine who I knew back home, she lives in LA now, and she does makeup and costuming in Hollywood. She's working on the show.
No.
Yeah, she didn't tell me that she was doing this, but she was like, I was really excited to see what your reaction was going to be to this, because of how much that character and that team means to me and all that. And she said seeing your reaction is just awesome. And the team lineup is pretty cool. I mean, Robin, Raven, Starfire, Hawk and Dove, Beast Boy. So this is going to be super, super cool. I'm totally in, and if it's as fun as Legends of Tomorrow is, and you let Robin be a little fun and be a little charming. The thing that Dick Grayson always had over any other character in the Batman family is he is a modern day swashbuckler type character. He is fun, he's charming, he has sex appeal, he has all these things that you want out of that character trope. So you have to have that in there, especially they're all young and pretty and powered. Have fun with it. Don't let this be brooding.
Wait, this is gonna be a CW show?
Yeah, right. So no, I'm in there like swimwear.
All right. Well, and on that, sticking with the Batman theme, there, Batman Ninja. This like Japanese anime Batman.
What's your take on it?
I haven't seen anything. So is this based on a comic that I haven't? Okay, so this is just going to be an animated. A lot of times I don't like when people play with characters like that.
Yeah.
Yet the imagery that I'm seeing from it looks like a really neat and interesting take. So I don't know anything yet about the story. I've only seen the quick trailer that was out. The visuals, at least visually, this looks interesting to me. So I definitely want to check it out.
I get why people are into it. It's just not for me. Number one, you've heard me say, and I'll say it again, I don't care for Jason Todd or Damian. So anything that has Red Hood or Damian in the Batman family and all that is an automatic out for me. I don't know. I get why people are going to be into this. The anime look is great. The character designs are very cool. I totally get why, and I'm not sitting here saying, "Oh, this is going to be lame. It sucks." No, just not for me. So, I mean, it's definitely a pass on my end, but I'm interested to hear everybody's thoughts on it. So definitely hit us up on Twitter.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Just look up Batman Ninja. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube there. But so we're going to switch gears now, and we're going to shift over to the Marvel side of things with another recent movie that's been out, Thor Ragnarok. Been out for a few weeks now.
Yeah, Thor Ragnarok. It was a blasty blast.
I loved the movie. It was very entertaining, and I say that as a qualification because there were a couple of times when I thought they were still a little too goofy when even the characters themselves should have been a little more serious. At this point, I don't feel like we necessarily need to say spoiler alert, but I will just in case. That scene where Bruce sleeps from the plane and lands on the Bifrost.
I loved it.
I don't have a problem.
But I liked it.
I don't have a problem with the scene, but I think that the problem was because of the way they had handled so much of the material, it comes off comedically when it really, I thought would have had much more impact if that was one of the more serious scenes. Now, you see that and you kind of laugh about it, but realistically, if you think about that and the dynamic of what was going on there, Hulk could have come out.
He could have.
But he didn't. He let Bruce take the fall.
I think that's great. He's puny Banner. Bruce doesn't like him. I thought that was great.
But the fact that it was done in a way that it makes you laugh, I thought that should have been more of an oh shit moment than
that movie. Everybody focuses on the comedy, but that movie is so much more intense than people realize. That having a moment like that, I think, cuts into that a bit, and it cuts into it as almost a palate cleanser. I really liked the idea of doing something like that. Everything with the Hulk is so intense, and everything is so dramatic and so heartbreaking, and all of these things that the Hulk is, everything in this movie, I'm glad that the only heartbreak moment is seeing, and spoiler alert, the image of Black Widow.
Yeah.
That was it.
Well, and that was one of the very few moments in the movie where it was really serious.
Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I think Hulk acting like, a pouty 6-year-old at times is great. I think Hulk, if you know the character, internally letting Bruce literally take the fall was a lot of fun, especially the way it stops everybody in their tracks.
Yeah.
Oh man, I thought that stuff was great. But one of the distinction that this movie has over any movie that has Thor in it so far is there is no movie where he uses the hammer the way he does in the comics. That first fight with Surtur, it's right out of a Thor comic. Whether your Thor is Kirby, whether your Thor is Simonson, Tom DeFalco and Ron French, J. Michael Straczynski and Olivier Coipel, all of these guys, it doesn't matter who your Thor creative team is. When you see him spinning that hammer and, using the block and all that, I've never seen a Thor comic come to life the way it did in this movie. The Kirby soldiers, the Grandmaster's Tower. If you look on there, you see Beta Ray Bill's face and Bi-Beast and Ares and all these characters. It's so unapologetically a comic book in a way that even the rest of the Marvel films haven't been, and they've pretty much embraced the roots and the source material. So I loved Thor Ragnarok. Honestly, at this point, there's practically nothing I would have changed. Doctor Strange and the orange gloves.
It was awesome.
Oh my god. Dude, it was awesome.
Yeah, no, there is so much to love about that movie, though. They really, the imagery and the way that they put all that on there, it was pretty amazing.
Maybe I would have changed one thing, and it's so minuscule that it doesn't even matter. But the end credit scenes. One of them was funny. I just didn't need it, and the other one, sure, it's set up for what's coming next. But it's so vague that unless you're someone like me, you're not pulling. So to go back to it, those two end credits compared to the Justice League end credits, Justice League blows them out of the water.
Yeah. I feel almost like Marvel has been getting lax a little bit with the end credit scenes, and instead of doing things that lead to the other movies, like the thing they did with Spider-Man Homecoming, where you get the scene with Cap just doing outtakes and stuff. In a way, it was kind of funny because you sit all the way to the end of the credits, and there's that joke of like how many the whole patience thing, and how many more of these are there? It's okay. I kind of get the humor of that, but I guess my expectations have become that the final end credit scene, no matter what you do in the mid credits, because the mid credits is where you do that stuff, in my opinion.
The fluff.
But the final end credit scene should be what leads into the next movie.
Sure. And even if it doesn't lead into the next movie, if it's a character building moment.
Yeah.
So it's. I definitely think that was the only weak spot in Thor Ragnarok. Hearing Zeppelin playing in a fight scene, and that's one thing I have to say, and this is the interesting part. One of the things I couldn't stand about Justice League is like, yeah, let's play the white stripes in the big battle. Like, I don't really care, guys. Give me some cool Danny Elfman musical score. And I'm not usually a big fan of the rock or hip hop or any modern music in the fight scenes because I think it dates the film. But for some reason, it's Thor, it's the Immigrant Song.
It works. Well.
It just content-wise. So it's one of the rare times I give exception to that.
Well,
so
now
that's pretty boss.
Yeah. Well, so now leading into the almost next movie, not quite the next movie because we still have one or two more before that. The Avengers trailer that came out and blew everything out of the water. I don't feel like we need to do any kind of spoiler warnings of the amount of views that trailer got. There was a part of me that thought the younger me probably seeing all these characters come together in a film. They've had their solo time, you get to see them develop as characters. The idea of them all coming to the big screen and getting them all in one film and it all working like blows my mind. And there's a part of me that thinks, well, would I have actually been able to appreciate that as a child? I had that moment with my 9-year-old that was pretty cool, where I showed her the trailer. And we're sitting there, we're watching it, and she reacted much like I do for most of it. You know, I sit here, I joke all the time about being like a Zen video game player, because when I play video games, there's very little expression, very little movement anywhere except my hands.
Yeah.
Like my hands and my eyes, that's it. But when they got to that final scene, at the end of the trailer, where you see Thor talking to the Guardians, and I got to see her expression, and she was just like blown away, because for the majority of the trailer, she's like, "Oh, this is cool." You know, I can see the look on her face, and she's into it. But she's seen all these characters on screen together before. But the Guardians have been so separate from the rest of the Marvel universe on screen. And then she sees Thor with the Guardians, and she's like, "Oh my God, really? They're gonna be in that too?" Like, it was so cool.
When I was a kid, one of my favorite cartoons was Spider-Man the Animated Series. And one of the things that was different between the X-Men cartoon and the Spider-Man cartoon was the X-Men cartoon, they weren't allowed to have guest stars. In 4 seasons, I think it was, of that cartoon, they did one guest star, and it was a flashback to when Wolverine was in World War II, and it's Wolverine and Captain America teaming up against the Red Skull and Hydra and
that was so awesome.
Baron von Strucker, all that stuff. And it's super, super cool. And of course, Wolverine doesn't remember it because of the Weapon X project and blah, blah, blah. They had 3 cameos on that cartoon. There's a Doctor Strange cameo, a War Machine cameo, and literally just his hand flipping a web of Spider-Man. They didn't even show the entire character. But Spider-Man the Animated Series, what the strength of that cartoon, aside from telling really great character-driven Spider-Man stories, was the amount of guest stars that were on that show. One season in particular, they do their take on the Secret Wars. The superheroes that they have guest star in that story arc, it's Captain America, Iron Man, War Machine, the Fantastic Four, Wolverine, and Storm. It was just so cool. I was probably about 13. It was so cool to see all those characters teaming up in this cartoon, because I've seen them team up in the comics 1,000,002 times. I mean, you read Marvel team up, it's Spider-Man teaming up with someone. You read Marvel 2-in-1, it's the Thing teaming up with somebody. So it's not uncommon. But what's really cool for me, because while I am stoked to see these characters on screen together because it's just a great time to see all this, it's really cool for me to see the reactions of people who don't read comic books and don't understand comic book storytelling, don't understand the way characters interact all the time, and the compare and contrast in personality. For them to see all these characters together is massive, and it's such a cool experience for them. And for me, the stoke that I get out of it is watching people's faces. It's why Civil War is so much fun. You know, it's why Homecoming is so much fun. It's why Thor Ragnarok is so much fun. Everybody wanted to complain that Spider-Man Homecoming is just Iron Man 4 because, Spider-Man is in it. And they were Civil War is Avengers 3 because everybody's in it. And everybody bitching about that forgets that this is commonplace in comic books.
Yep.
This happens all the time.
They all exist in the same world.
If you want world building, you have to accept the world. Yep. And you can't get mad and complain when they all interact, when that's all that you've been asking for, And why complain when you get more? You're getting what you want.
Yeah.
And really, if you tally the total, Iron Man's in Spider-Man Homecoming for maybe a total of 15, 20 minutes tops. He's really not in it a ton, but he does get one of the punch moments in that movie too, where your heart just shatters, and that's great, and it's awesome because it should be emotional content. Spider-Man's in Civil War for a total of 20 minutes. Everybody complained that Thor Ragnarok is just Planet Hulk. It's just a Hulk movie with Thor in it.
Great.
There are elements to Planet Hulk, and there are elements to Ragnarok that all combine together to make this movie. Not everything has to be a straight literal adaptation. If we're not pulling from all of the different material that makes this stuff special, then why do it at all? And why complain when you're getting the thing you've been asking for since Iron Man?
Well, and people have been asking for World War Hulk, and it's like, this is probably...
You're never going to get a solo Hulk movie.
Not World War, but Planet Hulk.
You're never going to get a solo Hulk movie, so just be stoked that he steals every movie.
Yeah.
He steals Avengers. He steals Age of Ultron. He steals Ragnarok. If you're not going to get a Hulk movie, at least let him be one of the 3 best characters in these movies. So yeah, that's my. That said, Infinity War is going to be awesome. The only thing I would change, and I think this might be a perfect segue, is let Thanos wear his helmet. Let Thanos wear his costume.
Well, I thought his skin looked a little pinkish, more so than purple, but that's probably I don't know if I'll say not necessarily one of the best things, but definitely a hilarious thing to come from the trailer is all the fan art that came out.
Oh boy.
You know, remaking. My first thought when I saw Thanos is I thought he looked a little like Bruce Willis, and I saw somebody do that and it was hilarious. But they've done other things, you know, making him look like Joss Whedon, giving him the facial hair and the eyebrows with the orange color, the digitizing of the super stash.
Yeah.
But the best one by far has been the Homer Simpson Infinity Donut one.
Yeah, no, definitely, I can't argue that. He does make a pretty perfect Homer Simpson.
If Homer Simpson was jacked like The Rock.
Yeah, no, there were a couple. There was a really good one that I saw where they put the flannel on him and made him look like Debo from Friday.
Oh,
which
yeah.
was awesome.
No, yeah, and they drew like an Infinity Gauntlet in there too, and hit something saying about
Yo, Infinity Gems.
Yeah.
Yeah, so which was awesome. So yeah, no, that was a lot of fun. If you don't put him, you know, we've gotten 3 cameos where he's in the helmet and the shoulder pads, that really cool Jim Starlin design, and the Ron Lim look, all of these things that make Thanos cool, then he just looks like some dude. He looks like some big purple dude, but
pink.
I'm still going purple.
I know, but in the trailer he looked a little pink.
But nah, if that's the worst, then this is fine.
Yeah.
So
it
I'm
looked
in.
amazing.
Yeah.
So. And before we shift to TV here, we'll stick with the Hulk and World War Hulk 2. Any thoughts on that?
Curious. Greg Pak's a great writer. Greg Pak did some really great Hulk about maybe 7-8 years ago. All the stuff with Planet Hulk and World War Hulk, and you know, again, he's just a solid writer. I don't necessarily think that we need to go back to the well. What was it Marvel said that it's the final fate of Amadeus Cho. I love Amadeus Cho. I think he has worked as the Hulk. I still prefer Amadeus Cho when he was it the 3rd smartest person in the Marvel Universe. All that stuff was great. But if the ultimate fate for him is killing him, why are we killing off a character who's so much fun? I think what would be cooler, and hopefully, maybe I'm wrong, hopefully this is what they do, is he is freed from this curse. He is freed from the curse of being a Hulk, which rarely happens to anybody with this affliction. So, but again, I just don't think it's necessarily a good idea to go back to the well with this and do a sequel to it.
And I know we're getting short on time, so we're going to finish up with one last topic. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. just started their season 5 and had their opener. Have you been watching the show?
I fell out. I think by season 4, all the stuff with Ghost Driver.
Oh shit, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot about you.
Sorry, Robbie Reyes fans, I have nothing against the character, but you know, if you ride in the car, you're the passenger. So,
yeah. The driver.
You know.
Yeah, not the rider. I gotcha.
But, it's not that I didn't love the show, a lot of it started to move really slow for a while. It couldn't figure out what it wanted to be, and as much as I dug it, I tapped out, so...
I've stuck with it through the good and the slow and the bad and the fun and all that stuff. The season 5 opener picks up right where season 4 left off, so it's not like there's been any passage of time. They were going into the diner to get a slice of pie. Then at least the way that season 4 left it made it
look like... Were they in Twin Peaks?
It made it look like they were going to get arrested, and then all of a sudden Coulson's out in space. Well, now the cool thing you get to see is how they got to space, and the twist is they're not just in space. So folks, again, spoiler warning if you haven't watched it, but since it's already been out on TV, we're kind of assuming most folks have seen it. They're actually way far in the future.